Recording in progress.
Okay, and now we open the game for open forum questions. So I did see something recently that I will mention. Have any of you looked at replacing your main router with an open WRT router? If not, you may want to consider it. Let me get to the right web page for this.
I just got a Roku Ultimate, which seems like it's its own router.
Okay, open our WRT.org, and there's the one. Okay, here's the project. So let me share this. Get to my share screen. All right, this. I have several Rokus. In fact, I even have one that I'm not even using right now that I have purchased as a backup in case one of the other two fail. In fact, I just upgraded to the Roku remotes that are rechargeable. So there was a sale right around the time of Amazon Prime days that said, oh, you buy two of them, you get a price break on them, and they use USB-C to charge. I thought, okay, let's try it. So now I got two of them in place. Problem is, I thought the power was dropping on them very rapidly, and then I realized I was looking at the power setting for the old remote and not the current remote, because you have to select which remote you're going to look at. Anyhow, this is the Open WRT1 router. I'm going to click on this, and that's where it's on sale at AliExpress or other places. You go back a moment and show you the picture of the thing. Let's see, here it is. This is the board, okay? There's a picture here, I gotta find it here. That shows you all of the cases that it comes with as well, but here, snapshot image, OEM firmware. They recently came out with this late last year, I think is when it became available. There's the enclosures. You can look also at this one. This isn't more pictures of it. What normally they put a heat sink over this area. Okay, so this section is a heat sink. It's only one in and one out. Okay, the in is a 2.5 gig wide area network. The output is a 1 gig LAN. There is a second version of this that is being worked on, but I'm not sure who's producing it. It's got a pretty good amount of hardware in it already. It's got 1 gigabyte of memory. It's got 256 of flash for boot and Linux, and a 16 megabyte NOR flash for bootloaders. So this, they're talking this might be unbrickable, okay? Because you have two different versions of flash. In case one gets corrupted, you can boot the other one and restore the first one again. It has an M.2 socket if you need to put an SSD inside of this thing. Dual band Wi-Fi 6. So it's got DFS 5.65 gigahertz as well, so it can do avoidance of radar signals and such, so it can use the mid-band. 3 antenna connectors, has USA port, powers off a USB Type-C power supply, okay? And if you add that to the order, it's like $5 more or something like that. So, and it's, seems to have everything one would need. I'm thinking about this one because it comes flash. You can always put the newest version of it on there, but you can do a lot of things on it that you normally can't do with a regular router. Like regular routers, you really can't use an RSH command to look at something in the router or actually go in on the command line interface, but this one has all that built in. So it sounds like a pretty solid little setup. It does not look like it's overcrowded or anything like this. Can also be powered over Ethernet. to power this thing as well. PoE module as well. So it looks like it has most everything you would need. I don't know if the PoE comes in on the WAN port. So you could like have more than one of these things and use them as APs instead of routers, but you could do other things as well. So anyhow, it sounds like an interesting project. And it's something that I stumbled upon when I was looking for my presentation tonight, because I found out by hook or by crook that inside the WEMO devices and probably the TAPO, the software is basically a version of OpenWRT. There is enough hardware and software inside that WEMO plug that you wouldn't believe. There's 512 megabit of RAM, and which is 64 megabytes if you look at it that way. And it's got a fairly sizable flash inside of there as well. So it was quite interesting looking up some of the hardware on this and finding an article where they actually went into one of these units. Originally on the WEMO switch, they reported a buffer overflow problem, which is why Belkin decided to remove this item from future support. Basically said we're going to discontinue support for this item, even though it was a relatively recent addition to their switch line. This came out 2022. And they're obsoleting it after 3 years, which is just clicking past the end of the warranty period. And if you bought one afterward and it's still within the warranty period, they may give you money back for some portion of it when it becomes unusable at the end of January. What I believe they're going to do is they're going to discontinue the server support, which these things rely on heavily. So I haven't seen other companies doing the same thing, removing their server support or how they would transfer it. I've sort of been going inside of some of the code for this to look at both this, and I also downloaded some of the code for my TAPO switches as well. So if I have a problem with them in the future, I can see if I have enough source code to create them. Downside is you have to have a Linux machine set up so you could do either a compile or a cross compile of the code to be able to regenerate it. I mean, I even found out which versions of the Linux kernel that some of these things are using. One was by the people that actually took one of these things apart and actually looked at the code, snapped a copy of the flash memory and analyzed it. And the others were looking at, like what I looked at was looking at the source distribution that they had to post because they used open source. So anytime you use open source in your web, on your product, you have to provide access to the modified modules that they have used to build this thing. So, any other questions out there? Buy anything new? Go ahead, Sad.
Well, of course I bought new. It was Prime Day. So I had to buy stuff. But I tend to be cheap. I admit it. So I bought a deal on underwear and a couple other odds and ends items that I needed. But I wasn't going to go too wild. The one thing I did buy is, here it is, right here, is called Loop. And these are are musicians' earplugs. And I've had 2 brands already. This is my 3rd brand of them. It's fairly comfortable, and it's called Loop because there's the earpiece has a loop on the outside of it, which makes it go in the ear much easier and not particularly stick out. I actually had an Altec one that you used a little tool that you put over it to push in, to put it in, and that seemed really stupid. And then I had another one that it was really hard to get it to go in right and stay. These have actually stayed fairly well. So I have so far no complaints with these loops. And they were massively discounted for Prime Days. So they didn't take me for a loop or something like that. Can I do a quick share?
Sure.
Here it is, that one here. And then I bought this one from there it is, from Home Depot. Pretty good deal because I needed a couple more of the batteries. And this pack was actually 2 batteries, charger, and the work light for $79. And I notice now it's showing as $89. But when I got it, it was $79. But a 4 amp, a 2 amp, and the charger, and the light is the workbench light is fairly cool. It goes up to 1700 lumens, and it actually will rotate around, so you can adjust it, and it will come out of it a hook, so you can hang it also.
So that will last on the 2 ampere hour battery about 6 hours, huh?
That's what they're saying. And then the 4 amp is about double that.
Yeah, I had bought a couple of Bosch replacement 12-volt batteries, but they weren't Bosch labeled. They were an aftermarket. And I figured 2 of them for the price of 1. So I think the 2 of them were like about $39 or something like that with their, and I'm trying to remember if they had, I don't think they had a charger. They were batteries only. But when I looked at the batteries, and I even posted a comment on it on Amazon, there is a locating tab on the battery. So if you look at the end of the battery, there's a locating tab, and the newer batteries had a tab on the other side of the battery, and the old ones had it on the same side as that. But when I tried to put them into a new charger, they would not go in without forcing. And I think, I don't want to try and force it. I got out my old charger, plugged right in. So I think, oh, there's something different between the new charger and the old charger. Not really, but the tab is off slightly from what it needs to be. Because if you put it in at an angle, when you put it in the charger and rock it in, it plugs in fine on the new charger. But I didn't know that when I first got it. I think, okay, you may have miscalculated some stuff here, guys. And I just pointed out, showed pictures of and you could see it was off by maybe 1.5 millimeters. It doesn't take a lot to keep a battery from plugging into a charger if they're trying to protect you from plugging in something that doesn't belong. But I charged them up, and I just decided I wanted a couple extra batteries I had a free Bosch tool years ago that I didn't have extra batteries for, and it was like a screwdriver. It was a screwdriver with a clutch capability and runs a long time. So I went and got that, and seemed to work okay. Okay, which is that?
This is an Aware Element. It's an air monitoring device.
Okay.
What does it monitor? It'll monitor CO2. It monitors particulates in the air, and it monitors humidity, and it monitors temperature.
Does it do anything with hydrocarbons or natural gas or combustible gases?
It just says CO2.
Okay, so it's not. It doesn't have the heated sensor in it that helps it determine flammable gases or CO2.
And it does total VOX, which is chemical measurements.
Oh, so it can do some. That's volatile oxides, not oxides.
Yeah. It says volatile organic compounds.
Volatile organic compounds, VOCs.
Yeah.
Which basically are things that they would need the same sensor for CO2.
It's a little
Yeah,
different,
so-
but similar.
And it
But
has, so
basically
it
does the
has a
same thing. It
display on
tries
the
to cook
front.
it and see if it responds, and that's how they know there's VOCs present.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, so
basically how
you can use the app shows all the different readings, or the display shows an overall rating number with different vertical dot bars for the other things.
it only has a
Battery-
display. It doesn't have Wi-Fi connection.
No, as I said, it does both. It's got an app,
Okay.
so you could pull up the app and look at the details, and then it's got a display on on the unit itself.
Battery
Does
or
it-
plug-in?
Full plug-in. I mean, this thing's meant to sit in the house anyway, so it's not really a reason for it to be battery. It's not something you're going to carry around with you. So,
Sid, is there a camera on it?
no,
Not that you know.
no. Yeah,
Made by a
no,
Chinese
there's
company.
not. Yeah,
Take a video of your dying breaths as you inhale carbon monoxide.
yeah, no. Although you mentioned camera in it, one of my A devices from Amazon updated to the new Plus version.
Ooh.
So instead of being regular A word woman, it's now the A plus thing. It's it's a different voice, much more expressive, but be aware, it is very strange. I asked it, how did the Cubs do last week? And it said there was one Cubs game last week and the score was 5-3. And I said, there was definitely more than one Cubs game last week. And it said, oh, you are correct. There were 3. And actually, there were more than 3. So then I said, who are the Cubs playing this weekend? And she said, they're not playing this weekend. And I said, that's funny. I show they're playing the Yankees. And she said, you're right. They are playing the Yankees.
Oh. Is it
And
hooked up to
then-
ChatGPT or Grok?
Yeah, well, no, I think they have their own. And then she gave the morning weather. I asked for the weather, and she actually said the temperature, which was going to be 80 something, and a 0 chance of snow. And I said,
Did you do a humor bit or something with her and she's got stuck in
No.
funny mode?
yeah, no. So I said, how much snow is there in July? And she paused and researched it and came back and said, the likelihood of snow in July is fairly tiny. And I said, that's the point. And she got that. He said, you're right. I did. So,
If you want to ask strange things, ask your G person what pronouns they use and be surprised at the answer.
the difference is that you can say Google because without the H word in front of it, it doesn't
Yeah.
care. The other thing the new A plus does, it's continual listening. You don't have to keep saying the A word. Once you say it, it just keeps listening for multiple things.
Oh.
There's a
Does it tell
setting
you
for
to
that in the
unlock your
old.
tablet all the time? Like if you say it and then you have to unlock the tablet first.
I haven't tried it with the tablet version, but the weirdness is it says if you update one of your devices to the plus, it will update your other devices. So I asked her, I said, my other Echo Show isn't updated. And she said, well, that's because you have an older version. We can't do that on your older version. She stressed that older version.
Does
And
it going
I
to check
said-
the versions of everything you have now? Yeah.
Probably. And I said, so you didn't say that in the first place when I did it. And she said, I think you're right. That seems to be her favorite statement. I think you're right. So she didn't quite get that one. There's a lot of differences. For instance, I said there's the big one. Where's my stuff? On the old one, if you said that, it'll say you have this and this order on this and this day. If you do it on the new one, it shows how many stops away it is. It showed it was 4 stops away for today's. And then it went
Okay.
into what's coming in the future and what it had delivered in the past week had been delivered.
Okay, that sounds like it might be worth part of it right there. Does it interface to the doorbell too then, so you can access
Yeah. And the
somebody
old
who's on the
one,
key
the old
doorbell?
one, yeah. Yeah, but the old one did that also. But somewhere there's a setting for the name of the doorbell, and I can't find it. So I get every time the doorbell rings, it says UP 274598326847259 is been someone is at that door. Is at the door because it uses that with a big number after it, so it's unique. And somewhere there's a way to change that. I'm not sure where, but it gives this massive number every time.
Well, that was where the problem was in the WEMO switches, was the friendly name. If you used more than 30 characters in a friendly name, it could overflow the buffer, and it didn't protect, and it corrupted the stack. And it was the friendly name is what you use when you want to say closet light or something like that.
You know just how fast Comcast can cut you off and put you on? I didn't get the email that my credit card wouldn't process because they sent the new one with a different expiration date. So it hadn't been paid in 3 months. So I noticed my speaker next to the bed was sitting there dead without a connection because they had just turned everything off. And
the only thing they don't turn off when they do that is access to Comcast.com. They restrict everything else outside of that, but it'll let you get to Comcast.com.
Oh, I had the app on my phone.
Or Xfinity, yeah.
Yeah, so I went in the app on the phone, paid the amount, and within 10 seconds, everything came back on.
Because they turn it off at your router. They go in and modify your router to shut it down or to cut back on it and whatever.
Well, I didn't think they turned the neighborhood off. But anyway.
Well, they don't block it somewhere upstream. They block it right there so that you're not
Yeah. So it's like 10 seconds after I submitted the payment that all of a sudden the TV came on, the internet was back.
Wow. I ordered some stuff on Prime Time as well. While I was when I saw the note about the WEMO stuff going out, I said, okay, let's go ahead and see if the Tapo switches are on sale, and ordered another complete set of those so I can go around and replace it, because I already have like 10 WEMO devices around that I'm going to have to swap out if I don't find another way around it. So I'll take those out and then program schedules in for the Tapo devices in place of them. I also ordered a Tapo light switch so that it can be wired into a box. And my idea is I'm going to go out into my garage. I'm going to take off the steel box and put a plastic expansion box and put it into there. But it's from the router, it's only on the other side of a wall in the garage, so it has no problem to reach it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, you reminded me. I didn't order this, but I saw it online and they emailed me a 50% off if I want to buy one. It's called the Button. All this thing is a electronic solenoid device that you stick on any button, and then you can remote control on and off that button. You can put it on anything. You can put it on a light switch or anything that will toggle.
Okay.
It's called,
Well,
it's
I don't
called
need
the
it for the
button.
switch. I didn't need this for the switch, but this will control my street light out front. And the nice thing about both TAPO and WEMO and all these other ones that are scheduled, almost all of them let you start at sundown and then plus an hour, turn on the light, or turn on an hour before sundown and turn on the light, so that you can have it automatically move appropriately and then turn off at 12:30 or something at night and whatever. Or if you had a motion sensor going, turn on the light. You could do one of those, if this then that operation. So if you have motion sensors and blink sensors that are hooked up to things, you can, or motion on a TAPO device, you can program them to turn on other switches. Turn on all the lights. And then light up the whole house. And then, that may make anybody who's trying to check out your house think otherwise. Oh, it looks like they're home. Better not do that. The light went on upstairs. Which does help. I mean, if you have lights that go on automatically, people said, well, they may have it on a timer, but we don't know if somebody's actually there or not. If another light goes on, then, that's better than even chance that, yes, it is somebody else is there. But I have one old Blink camera that has, it's the one that got doused in water. It works sort of. I can plug it in and it will come into operation, but then after like about a week, it just falls off and says, oh, something's wrong, and it needs to be power cycled again. And power cycle it, comes right back. It's usually okay. Any other questions? No other hands raised. Anybody else got another issue? Has anybody got the announcement or got the information from Microsoft to get an extra year free on their Windows 10 devices?
Or other meetings.
I know it's been stated in the meeting. I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, you won't.
I haven't seen.
That ESU does not go into effect until almost the October 14th date. Then
Okay.
you either pay $30 and you only get 1 year. That's it.
Yes.
The other thing is you can sign up for the automatic backup to OneCloud, plus use Bing search and get it for free, which nobody recommends. And then the other is check your Microsoft account. You may have points, and as long as you got 1,000 points, you can turn that 1,000 points in and again pay nothing.
Okay. I wonder how many points I got for buying Office 365.
A lot of people found out they've got a lot of points they never even knew, because as long as you use Edge and Bing search, you're accumulating all kinds of points.
Or if you're using Office 365.
Office 365 qualifies too.
You probably will be accumulating some points for some of your activities that just go along with that.
Okay. Well, I have that, so I'll have to see at some point in time what it looks like.
In other words, it probably, your Office 365 is using some Bing, it's using some OneDrive, it's doing some other things. Edge.
And see, the thing
Well,
is,
I keep turning off my backups because I'm on one machine that's been off since like February. I had to fire it up and let it download all the updates, and I noticed really quick after I fired it up, like the OneDrive was trying to back up some of my desktop and pictures, and I said, no, because you're making them disappear off my desktop.
Now, see, the thing is, with the ESU, if you're taking the first option to do backup, etc., and you don't have Microsoft 365, you only got 5 gigs. 5 gigs is a drop in a bucket. We haven't had 5 gig hard drives since 1982 or 3, and therefore you're going to have to buy more storage from Microsoft, which is exactly what they want. And they figure,
well, if you have Office 365, you got a terabyte, so or 6 terabytes.
But
you and your 5 family members.
most people are not really buying into the MS365 because they can't make use of all what's there. Most people, even when they only had just Word, spreadsheet, and PowerPoint, if they used 10% of what they paid for, they were doing good. And most people were using it less than that.
Well, I've been using more than 5 gigs just for my Outlook account for a while, so probably using around 12, I think. Just for old emails and attachments and other stuff. Doesn't even count the OneDrive stuff. Yes,
I bit the bullet and I gave Google more money for storage because I was at 96% of the 100 gig I was paying for, so I upped it to a 200 gig because I just didn't want to spend the time trying to cut stuff back. I remember
you
when
didn't want to go all the way to
came
the
out,
terabyte?
It's $10 more a year for the 200 versus the 100. And
I saw it.
I played with, what bugged me is I had a bunch of play points, but it won't let you use them unless it covers the entire amount.
No partials.
You won't use that and then use the credit card for the rest. So this time I got smarter and I went in and I added $10 more to my PlayPoint account. So it then had enough to cover the full amount. And the way they do it is weird. Instead of the $19.95, we'll charge you $10. They charge you the $29.95, and then they prorate the days left on the previous one. So it said I have 568 days before I need to.
And your credit card will still be valid then?
Yeah. So I did it that way, but it was,
I never checked to see with the virtual cards. Is the virtual card only good for one time when you do a virtual card?
It depends who's virtual. I use privacy.com. I've talked about that often.
Yeah.
I adore privacy.com. It's the greatest gift, and the free gives you pretty much everything you need. And so I just renewed my Tribune subscription for another year for $1. And I don't have to worry at the end of the year the pain of trying to get them to not auto renew it. Because you can, with privacy, you can set up by transactions, total amount, individual amount. It's like I have the Hulu $2.99 a month deal. And that one on privacy is locked at $3 a month for a year. The ones like that Tribune, it's you can lock it as a one-time with a max of a buck. I think I did $1.50 because there's the possibility they had tax or not. They ended up not, but I didn't want to play around with that. I figured, hey, whatever.
What did they do? Make the Chicago Magazine available for you to download so they can charge you more?
No, but Consumer Reports just did. I don't know when it changed. I have access to their website as an old press guy. They never took it away from me, so I still have another 3 years on it. But all of a sudden, one of the features on their website is you can download past and current issues, PDFs. They always, before, I kept them separate. You had to have a subscription for the magazine, subscription for the website. And now you can actually download the issue at the website. I happen to also pay for a subscription. I get the paper issue.
Okay. I'll have to look into mine.
That was new. That was new. I had never seen that.
Interesting.
That was new.
Okay, Dennis, I noticed you unmuted. Do you have a question?
No. I'm just leaning in.
Wasn't sure.
Sid is kind of cutting in and out on on me a little bit there. I don't.
His last mention, it was cutting out a little bit. don't know what it was, if it was audio or if it was something network related. Do something real quick here. Check to see. Yeah, it says I have more than enough bandwidth to do this. Yeah. Let's see what else. We got 7:45, so. Yes, go ahead, Bert.
Ed, we have a new person joining us tonight. Maybe you can introduce yourself or him. iPhone Sally.
He's not. That's not an old new person. That is.
That's an old
Carl
person.
Wallen.
Well, somebody who hasn't been to this meeting so I thought we should.
Well,
Carl
he normally
Wallen has
joins
been here
as Sally
at
Wallen.
meetings from time to time, but it's been a little while since he's been there. But he's been in and out for since we've been on Zoom.
Yes, even
That's
before.
Carl, right?
Yeah,
It's Carl.
Carl Wallen.
Yep, Carl.
Yeah.
He always uses his wife's name, thinking that if INS comes to grab him, they're going to grab her instead.
Okie doke.
Yeah. No ice
I'm
jokes?
Being good. I'm staying out of that. I'm not going politics. I could. Clawing back money from NPR is just the latest straw. But hey.
I mentioned, I think on the last meeting, but you weren't here. My daughter received on her email 2 tickets to the rally that was held on Flag Day in Washington. Like, you had to reserve tickets in advance, and she got tickets emailed to her Gmail account. Like, somebody just randomly signed up for 2 tickets and put her email address in there to lock up 2 extra seats so somebody else couldn't use them. But I said, "Oh, you should go to Washington." He says, "No, she wouldn't. She doesn't want to do anything like that, since my son-in-law is on a green card from Australia, so he doesn't want to rock the boat, and she's not going to do any rocking at all." But I know what his opinion of the orange one is. Yeah.
Well, Australia was first populated by convicts, wasn't it?
Supposedly, but it's just like there. I don't think many of the convicts are there. A lot more people visited after that, just like the U.S. I mean, how many of your descendants came over on the Mayflower or earlier or whatever, were here as members of an Indian nation? I mean, I got some on both sides. My wife's she's got a relative to Samuel Prescott, who is if you hear the poem, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere didn't ride too far at all. In fact, he got captured almost right away. And 2 other guys rode. I'm trying to remember what the one guy's name is, but Samuel Prescott was the only guy to make it all the way through and get to Concord and let them know, the British are coming, you better hide, they're going to arrest your ass. But and on my side, I have a great-great-great-grandmother who her husband had been in the Oklahoma land rush, and she looks an awful lot like a Cherokee. So very possible I have some of that in the bloodline as well. And I'll do one of those DNA tests, and then the DNA company will go out of business or something. But I'll find out what I'm related to. But I have 2. My grandmother came over from Poland, so that was relatively recent, 1900. I think that was the most recent one of my ancestors that came into this country. So, yeah, 3rd generation non-immigrant. That's about it. Okay, what I'm going to do.
I'm 5th generation Chicagoan. My mother born in Chicago, her mother born in Chicago.
Well, I have the distinction of both of my grandfathers changing their names. My grandfather on my mother's side decided that it was better to have a name Sanders rather than Sander in World War II. Right about the time, like, let's change it and put an S at the end of it. Why? Because it sounds English. And my father's side, the original family name is Maddox, which I believe is Welsh. But he decided it was better to have a name like Keating to paint houses in Chicago. So he changed his name after moving here from Pittsburgh. So, and my great-grandfather on my father's side, he left Poland because he was a draft dodger. The Tsar was looking for a few good men. Oh, there's a happy dog.
It's a Zerpy.
It's a Zerpy.
Actually,
Okay,
she's not happy at the moment. She wants attention.
Okay, I'm going to turn on screen sharing and hopefully everyone can see that display. If not, shout out. Okay, so WEMO support is ending. And they announced recently the end point is going to be the end of January and 2026. So let's go to the next slide. So nothing lasts forever. They decided they were going to retire these switches and smart home devices, which were previously supported as of January 31st, 2026. They basically turn off the cloud support for these devices. I'm not sure I don't think they're going to go out and actually disable all the devices, but a lot of them are not going to function too well if you can't access the cloud. You certainly won't be able to provision new devices, and you won't be able to do too much else unless you find a way to hack them. They do indicate that if your devices are supported by HomeKit, they may be able to continue to function after, but you're going to need an Apple device to support HomeKit. And I don't have any Apple devices here to try and put them on HomeKit as well to see if they will continue to be supportable or not. The ones that are Matter-enabled devices are not affected by the service discontinuation. This is a partial list of them. This happens to have one of the ones that I have right here that is one of the more recent ones that is being discontinued. Okay, here's the list, part of the list for the rest. I didn't know they had a water heater connection or an air purifier or a coffee maker, WEMO, but they have those too. There's some other ones, a maker module that's been around as well. This other column over here is whether it's HomeKit compatible. So you can see this whole list is not HomeKit compatible. This one is, this one is. So some of them were, a lot of them are not. So what do you got to do before they shut down? If you have any new WEMO devices that you haven't yet installed, you better install them and load them up with the last firmware release before they shut everything down. You could try and re-provision your WEMO devices to HomeKit, but you're going to need an Apple device to do that with. And I'm not sure what Apple device will qualify to run HomeKit, because you can get some HomeKit type apps that'll run on other machines, but it's not actually the same thing as having an Apple product. And it might be possible after they shut down to manually control switches via like a Python script with a Windows machine on a local net. But I'm not sure what the extent of that will be. They may be flashing red all the time and still switch on and off, but they may have an issue trying to communicate upstream to their server when they turn off the cloud service. So what are your options? Well, easy ones you could convert to would be something like Casa or Tapo switches. Both of those are almost the same thing inside. They're just different companies pushing almost the same equipment. So they each work with each other's app. The P115 switches that I've been using are 802.11n, and they seem to have a little bit better coverage than the WEMO ones, but the WEMO intrinsically could use 802.11n if they wanted to. I not checked to see how they connect up to my access point to see whether they were using 802.11n or 802.11g. Of course, there's the option to try and keep the WEMO going. It uses a modified OpenWRT source code. There's the link to the Belkin source code, all of the Belkin source code that's open source. Don't try and download all of it. It's probably multiple gigabytes. The one for my particular WEMO device is over 300 megabytes as a gzipped tar device, 330. I did notice the Linux kernel that they use is 3.8.27, and it's an ARM-based MIPS processor. So it's the same kind that runs in most Android phones. And if you want to try and build this, the development machine, you would need a Linux-based development machine with at least 2 gig of RAM and 20 to 30 gigabytes of space. And you might need, if you have an Intel machine doing this with Linux, you might need to be able to cross-compile to ARM. So you'd need the compiler that actually generates ARM code. Of course, you can configure that when you set up your environment variables to compile stuff and build and link it. There was a site that I found a whole wealth of information about my specific switch. And that's because it was identified in this particular vulnerability, the CVE 2023-27217. So when I went to that link, it showed me the actual people that found the problem. Okay, that's this Stern UMIOT company. Sternum has a company that supports cybersecurity. And as I'm reading this, I noticed one of the headings was TL:(DR), which is an abbreviation of too long, didn't read. So it says it's a long article coming up. So how did they start by doing this? Well, they went inside of it to find the vulnerabilities, because they figured if they can open it up, they can look and see what's there and maybe get an idea of what it's running and know whether or not it's got vulnerabilities. So this is the basic power control board, and the prongs for the device plug in through this, and there's a plug on the other side of this that goes into the wall. This board plugs into the bottom connector here and just sits along for the side, but this is where all of the control circuitry is. This is the microprocessor. This one is some of the, on the other side of this is flash. This is DRAM right here. And then there's some other interface chips as well. So they looked at the chipsets and they noticed it was a MediaTek system on a chip and WinBond 12 megabit DRAM chips. So the MediaTek chip actually has a 580 megahertz, it's a 32-bit processor, and had 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connectivity. So they used a Linux-based OS, which is OpenWRT. Here's the data sheet on that chip in case you're interested, and here's the specs on the ARM, and I was kind of surprised to see some of these specs. Oh, it's coming up. This is what the picture of the control board looks like. This almost looks like a JTAG connector, okay? Because they have the square pin locating pin 1. So there's stuff on both sides of this. One of these could be a JTAG, but when they connect up stuff to this, on this side, they use, if this is a JTAG, that would be the ground position, and this would be an active position, or vice versa. I think this one is this is VCC, and that may be a ground. And that's not how it works when they connect up other stuff to it. So I guess it's not JTAG, but it could be. So I haven't take mine apart to look and see what it is. Here's all of the information on that chipset and what it integrates. It's got a physical Ethernet connection capable. If you had the interface logic, you could glue to it and you could plug an Ethernet port in it. It's got a USB 2 host, a PCIe interface, I2S and PCM and other pins that can control things. It has 2 operation modes, both as an IoT gateway and an IoT device. In gateway, it can connect to the 802.11 AC chipset and be used as an AC dual band. But if it doesn't have that hooked up on it, then it's not going to interface to it. It also supports H.264 for cameras. So they probably use this in a lot of other things other than just this switch. Also had IoT gateway, could support Zigbee and sub 1 gigahertz if it had the RF populated as well. So there's more in the chipset features. It would support legacy 802.11bg and 802.11n, both normal channel and double channel. Supported DDR2 memory up to 256 megabytes. Had a physical layer for 10/100 Ethernet. Bunch of other things here as well. I noticed this thing right here, JTAG. If it has JTAG, then that's a way of loading it if you needed to, if we need to cross-load a new image to it. Chipset features also, and I then highlighted some of the things in red. The WPA and WPA2 just shows that, yes, it supports those, but not WPA3, which is what it needs to be even more secure. And then it identifies almost the same version, 2.6.36, and OpenWRT 3.10. So the other support chips on that board include the RAM, which is a WinBond SRAM, which is configured as 8 million locations by 4 banks by 16-bit. So that is 64 megawords, or actually it's, 32 megawords, which should be 64 megabytes. And it has DDR2 interface and speeds. Flash memory, 128 megabit, so that's 16 meg flash, which is more than enough to hold any image of OpenWRT. And this is how they copied the flash memory to analyze it. So they plugged in a device programmer, clipped it onto the EEPROM, and then sucked a copy of it down, and then they took it apart to try and analyze it. So they didn't go through the open source portion, but they went in through the actual device image that was resident. And they found it was 3.18.27 for the OpenWRT. They found the kernel references to some of the UART connections for screen and console inputs, and they were able to find the pinouts they needed. So on this board here, where you see this little piece right here, this chip capacitor, they used this as the ground. This is a 3.3 volt supply, and there's your transmit and receive. And then they could hook it up to a port like a USB to TTL level serial port at 115 kilobaud, sorry. Yeah, sorry, too far. And so they fired it up and they could start seeing stuff displayed that says, okay, that looks just like a console port. It would, come up and boot up and you could see things. And they tried to brute force log in as root. So they had a program that could try and do a brute force, and they ended up instead, because they could bring it up in single user mode. So they did, and then they replaced the root password with one that they could use. And then they could insert diagnostics into this device so they could do things like looking at the running processes. They could look at anything else that was trying to be done. They could put a debugger in, remote debuggers, and that's how they used to exercise the defect that they were looking for. So And when they actually did it, they were able to overflow a friendly username. They saw that it wasn't protected, and anything over 30 characters would start to corrupt the stack. And then they started working on what do you want to corrupt the friendly username with, so that when it fails, it didn't just reboot, but it would reboot and then allow you access as a root access next time through without having to have the root password. And that's what the fault is that they were able to derive. Interesting that they went to that level to find a defect in the product. But if you're going to try and replace this image with your own, there may be a JTAG interface in there. If there is a JTAG, then you could do that. The other thing you may need to look at is the thing that runs on your Google Play Store device, or the equivalent of the Kindle. There's a Kindle app as well, but it's not as easy to snap the APKs on the Kindle version unless you download some program that will repackage an installed program and make it an APK so you can install it somewhere else. This particular APK mirror has a copy of the 1.30.1 version, so you can download it. And I looked at it, and I could find some things that were in there as well. I mean, I could find some HTTPS links and such, like this one, production WEMO Android PN Firebase.io.com. Well, Firebase.io is a Google product, so I'm not sure if this has something to do with the servers that WEMO is using, but it's the only HTTPS link that I could find that was not encrypted in the APK. I mean, there was other ones as well. There was links to Adobe and Perl and www3.org, which means it provides a web interface probably. So there's other things there, and it's possible. I used Notepad++ and added the hex editor option to look through the APK, and that could go through, it could actually go through other things as well. If I were to unpack the entire distribution for the, excuse me a moment. Yeah. If I unpacked the open source, I could probably scan for other stuff that has strings of some sort that I might be able to determine where it's trying to communicate with. I'm sure it's probably in that image somewhere, but 330 megabytes of stuff to go through is little on the non-trivial side. And that's pretty much what I had. I could go to this. This is kind of interesting if I can go here. This thing right here, and I'll have to change my share when I do this. All right. Okay. Let's do this. And let's reshare to the other one. Now, this is the thing that you get to if you actually link through the NIST, the actual CVE link that I searched for. And so let's get rid of some of these things here. I can X out of that. Good. Okay. So this is how they went through it, and they have the pictures of this thing and how they got firmware access. And as you've seen these pictures already, this is the flash chip on the other side that they actually clipped the programmer onto and pulled it down. Some of the links that they saw, they started analyzing the kernel image, and they used, it's interesting, they used binwalk as a tool to find the kernel strings and such. And they found this boot device, and they also said console. There's the console device. So they're looking for how to console and the speed. In this case, it was 57,600, not 115 kilobaud. And that's the speed at which they needed to gain access to the keyboard and screen. So then they booted it up and they were able to try and hack it. They used a program called John the Ripper to try and hash and brute force their way in, but it didn't work within a reasonable amount of time. But since they had keyboard and screen access, they could use single user mode and change the red password. Now, here's some of the stuff that they added as well. They were able to get SSH access to the device, and then they could put in GDB in the GDB server so they could analyze it on a screen a little easier to read. There's the PS command running, showing what apps were running as well, and WEMO app and where it was connected to. Now, I tried to track down any of these addresses. These are local addresses, these are remote addresses, but none of them happen to match anything current from the time this was taken several years ago. And this is the friendly name where they found, here's the friendly name, they call it WEMO Mini 6E9. And if you program it with more than 30 characters, that is, it's not checked to see if you put less than 30 characters in there. So, yeah, what happens if you make it more? So they tried to ask and put in more characters than it was expecting with PyWemo. Okay, so PyWemo will let you go ahead. I've used this before. It's a Python package that you can run on a local computer connected up to the net with your WEMO devices, and you can turn them on, turn them off, check their status, do other things with them as well, and change their friendly name, which is how they did that, was going through that. So they needed to program it to do more than 30 characters, and it does not, only the app was stopping it, not the firmware code. Firmware code should have protected itself against it, and it didn't. And as a result, they were able to crash it, and all names longer than 68 bytes and shorter than 300, which cause a segment violation each time, and put it into a boot loop. And that's not a good thing. Finally, they found the variables where they were controlled, and they found that it was corrupting the heap as well. Heap and part of the stack. So they were trying to find a way to overflow it in a particular way so they could basically force it into root mode. And if you want to read the rest, I will leave that up for the rest of you to go ahead and look. Let me go ahead and post this thing out. Let's see, I need to do, there's chat, and it's not chat GPT, it's just chat. All right. File, okay, my computer. All right, desktop. It's the one I want. Open and send. All right, so you all get a copy of it.
And I just want to point out something about WPA. Linux
Sure.
kernel 2 or 3 would no way support WPA 3. That didn't come along until Linux kernel 5.3/5.4.
And
So
you
would
need
have
a
to
lot
make
of memory.
you would have to recompile the kernel to get that.
Yes. And I'm not sure how they supply. I didn't look too far into the gzip file to see how they supplied all of this, because I did not see any of the development tools, but they did have a file that said what versions of all the development tools were needed for this.
Yeah.
So it didn't go beyond that.
I imagine
It's
if you had some minimal version of each one, you'd do just fine on that Linux kernel.
Yeah, it's old and low and slow enough that it probably didn't require a lot of horsepower to compile, and it would probably do it in a reasonable amount of time as well, probably minutes rather than hours.
Yeah.
But I know they did supply a number of items in binary for some of the firmware editions. So there was some stuff that was binary that is in that gzip file that I would wonder, okay, is there any conversion necessary for this or something else to help it go along?
Definitely beyond my Linux knowledge.
Yeah, it's more than trivial. Yeah, I mean, there's things that I've done before where you partially compile some things, and then it just does a final binding, and it's done. And that's usually adequate for most people. I don't know of many people that have actually recompiled their entire Linux kernel all the way from the source code to make sure that every source matches. Just usually isn't done that many times. It can be done, but I mean, the really old versions of Linux always recompiled everything. And then
so anyway, if anybody ever put out an open source version of the hacked or updated firmware, these devices would be able to work again as local devices?
I would think you could. You are point it to your own server. Instead of pointing to the WEMO cloud, point to an alternative service. I mean, if I knew what the WEMO cloud's name, I could add a local host entry and force it to go to some other area. Okay, either on the WEMO device or in the router that interfaces to the my home router could modify it. Said, oh, if you see this address, replace it with this local address. And then have a NAS device that would control it. You wouldn't be able to control it from outside of your home environment unless you had a way of interacting with it through a VPN. But beggars can't be choosers. Did you say something, Dennis? Okay, I saw your mouth moving, but I know you're muted, so. I mean, I suspect that a lot of these devices are going to go on fire sale rather soon. So there'll be mass numbers of these things available. And it's a pretty fair little box all by itself when you think about it. And it's running off of 3.3 volts, and it has this processor and memory and flash. Would be nice to think that they could be reprogrammed for something else. But unless you have a way, because the only way these things update their firmware currently is through the WEMO app and over the air. That's the only way. And if you hold down the button and reset, I don't know how much is cleared on these things. I'll have to experiment with one and do a master clear on it and see if it puts back the original image or does it just reboot it with no configuration and it just wants to come up on that same firmware. But if I'm going to experiment with that, I need to do it before they shut down the server. I mean, there's a way you can do this. I've done this before when I wanted to analyze something. What I did was I put a wireless sniffer out, and then I would connect up the device to basically an open SSID. So if you have a SSID with no password and it's an open and it's not encrypted, then no encryption is done on the packets that you sniff over the air. So then you set up the capture device to only capture between the access point and the device by filtering the MAC addresses. So you set it up, it's all doing that. Now you plug it in and tell it to do its initial downloads. And now you will see all addresses back and forth as it tries to handshake and download code and whatever. And you can see the addresses of which the remote address is and what the local address is. And you may be able to say, okay, this address turns into this remote internet domain and or address. Now you know where the servers are. I think the only servers I found so far were just Amazon servers. There was nothing that pointed to them making them particularly special, but there must be something running on them. The one that I did find was the one I mentioned, let's go back down here. Production WEMO Android pn.firebase.io.com. And that links to something with Google Firebase, firebase.google.com, asking about the dashboard, what services are available, and okay, so maybe that's something that's running courtesy Google, and WEMO Belkin doesn't want to pay for it anymore. Could be. But if one could hack it and point it to somewhere else, that would be a start. I would think that if you can actually access the image on the flash, and if you are allowed to patch any portion of it, I mean, if it's running Linux and you have something in a semi-permanent storage, you should be able to debug, edit it, and change it to something else. I've done that before in a galaxy far, far away. Any other questions? Go ahead, Sid.
Let me unmute. There we go. What this reminds me of is I have an Obi box. And Obi did the same thing. They shut down the interface. So it's still running, but if something changes, you're sort of screwed on it.
Yes, that's the possibility. Well, then your alternative is to replace them with other switches. I mean, that's the easy out. But if there's a way to make it continue to function, I mean, the nice thing about some of these isn't the fact that I have it set up to be able to be controlled, but some of these things I just scheduled and forget about, and they just turn on, they turn off. It's like a wireless scheduler, and that's maybe all you need, as long as it can power up and handshake with some time server somewhere. If it can do that, wherever it needs to synchronize time with, and the Linux kernel will automatically synchronize with a time server. I'm not sure if it's NIST or Windows or Google or something else, but they'll find the time server and they'll automatically synchronize. So I'm pretty sure that Linux inside of this box is taking care of the time services. They're not getting that through the cloud. So if you had it set up to turn on, turn off, do what you need to do, that should be able to function pretty much the way it does. And if they continue running without any modification, just don't have a connection to the cloud afterward, that would work for me too, because some of these things I just have them set up to do connections to, like, Christmas lights. Turn them on at this time, turn them off at this time. But usually I like to do that hour after sundown. How do you know when sundown is? That's the key. Where did they get that from? Was that in the service, or was that something it figured out through an app?
There are Linux apps which do that.
I thought it might be possible. Okay, and it didn't ask me though when I was provisioning of this. I'm trying to remember if any of these things asked me what my latitude was, because that would have an impact as to what time sunrise and sundown is. Oh, you don't have sunrise and sundown. You're that far north.
Yeah.
Yeah. You used to have sundown for 6 months.
Yeah. So it stays on all the time.
Yeah, it would. That would be the trivial case. But I don't know if they got internet up there where you'd be able to do that. There are places that do have internet, but you start to run a little bit thin on coverage up there.
Starlink.
Yeah, Starlink. Yeah. You could Starlink. Yeah, I suppose.
Yep.
As long as you have found a way to power it, you certainly aren't using solar to power it. When your solar goes out for 6 months.
I don't know if they have any geothermal up there. If you dig down deep enough, there would be.
Yeah, you could use geothermal, or you could use wind power. I mean, they do have wind. Yes.
Yeah. Wind, waves, ocean current.
Yeah. Yeah, except when the ocean freezes.
No,
there
actually,
may be
the
a
ocean's still
underneath.
The ocean's still there underneath.
Yeah, there's a current involved, yes. But I don't think you're going to be wave action particularly. I don't know what they have.
Actually, under the ice, there's some fast flowing currents.
There are. Okay.
Depends on where you are.
Just hopefully you don't have to service this thing in the middle of the winter.
And of course, Alaska has some very shallow sources of intense geothermal heat.
Yes, they do. Of course, they also have this thing called earthquakes.
Well, I've known people who lived up there. They lived with them.
One of my nieces is living up near Fairbanks. I can't remember the town name, but it's up there. Yes. Oh, did I miss somebody? Okay, good. Let's go turn that off. But I thought it's interesting that they just happen to come up now and decide they're going to turn it off in January. And okay, and we'll give you credit for people that have less than 3 years old. Well, you're going to be pushing it if you want to make sure it's less than 3.
Well,
yes, that's it.
The other one that did that was Western Digital by WD Cloud Drive. Not only did they say they were not going to update it, they disconnected it to be used across the web. It only works now local. But they had insult to injury. They said, we're going to give you a discount on new ones. And the discount was less than it was selling on Amazon for.
Yes, Bob, you were finishing?
Yeah, well, what I was saying was that what they probably found was that there were vulnerabilities, just like WD did, as Sid says. There were vulnerabilities that it would require a sufficient amount of re-engineering of the product, so it wasn't worth their while to try to fix it. They would have to actually go in and replace some hardware.
Yeah, well, I know that the ones that are Matter compliant, I haven't tried to look at their code or processors to see how much resources they have there, to see whether or not it's the same chipset or it's a different chipset and different software, because they would have to get a much newer version of Linux into that smaller area. Because I'm sure the Matter compliant ones are WPA3 capable.
Well, that would make their Linux kernel at least 5.3, probably 5.4 or higher, which is fairly recent. Yeah. Fairly recent.
Yeah.
And that would give them some real potential for being repurposed.
Yeah. Although I was looking at some of these, the minute I started looking for some of these chips and on the spec sheets and whatever on some of the devices, I invoked AliExpress starting to send me all kinds of stuff like, oh, are you looking for this development board or this development board?
Well, at least you know these chips are still in use.
There are people that have an Ada fruit-based, let's say, WEMOS board that does something similar to what a WEMO switch does, but it's totally your control, and you control the software for it.
Yeah. So you can build your own of these.
If you wanted to, you could. All the control. If you looked at the WEMO switch, you could probably shoehorn in a Pi 0 into that same area and interface to the same pins and tell it to do some of the same kind of functions. And Pi 0 has got capabilities too, and you could code your own stuff as however you wish. And I'm not sure, is the Pi 0 has WPA3? I think so. But it's Pi OS, so I'm not sure. Let's look, Raspberry Pi 0 WPA3. It doesn't say how far along they are. It's not there yet. Okay, does not support WPA3 on the Pi 02W. Is not there yet.
Yeah.
And this was years ago. So they would have to wait until they support that same version of Linux, 5.3 or 5.4, I'm sure, and modify it to be a Pi image.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that because currently Debian Debian stable Bookworm does not support WPA3 fully. And I've noticed this in LMDE6. But LMDE7 will have Trixie, which is supposed to have support.
Is it because of the computational requirements of WPA3?
The kernel does not have drivers that will do the kind of encryption, the level of encryption.
Okay. Yeah, so it's because it's at a driver level when they do this, because it's got to be part of the handshake at the Wi-Fi level to be able to support WPA3, and the encryption is part of that. And where do you get the key from? How do you transfer the key from the OS to the driver so that it knows what to use when it does the seed and the encryption rotation and generates the response? And it's got to do this within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And depending on the size of the key and the amount of encryption required, that time may be more than is allowed by the protocol. So you might need a faster processor to do this in real time. That used to be one of the limitations with things like VPNs. VPNs will never run at the same speed as unprotected or just regular internet, because the encryption mechanism, depending on the size of the key, if you use a 256 byte key, that's trivial. If you're using a 4096 byte key, that encryption could take a second. And if you had a second of delay.
With the driver, it is that there's different math involved, different algorithm.
Yeah.
And yes, it is more complex.
Well, it also depends on whether if it's done in code in the processor or if it's done in a chip that's with the processor. If it's done in the Wi-Fi chip, then you have to make sure the Wi-Fi chip supports it as well.
Well, you do have to have Wi-Fi chips that will support it.
Well, and I meant that if that encryption is done at the chip level inside of the peripheral chip, not in the microprocessor. So, because then your kernel can only control like what it sends to the driver and that chip, and the chip does the work for it. If you've offloaded the Wi-Fi interface to a chip and you just say, send this packet, receive this packet, and let it work all the protocol for you, then if it needs an enhancement of the protocol, well, you need a new chip.
I suspect it's using the CPU.
It could, yeah. So, well, especially if it's baked onto the chip to support Wi-Fi. If the chip has everything you need except the actual drivers for the RF, then it could do that.
Yeah.
But if they have offloaded it into a peripheral chip, and that's what I've seen done before in older implementations, then you have to make it into the firmware has to change in those chips.
ARM-based system on a chip systems do tend to do that.
Yeah. So, anybody else got something that's going obsolete that they have to deal with? Printers are usually a good one for that, where they want you to upgrade and get more print cartridges and whatever.
In Windows, they're changing the whole print system so that it no longer does the spooler in order to get rid of Print Nightmare. And so they want printers in the future to be basically driverless. And Epson is less on board with this than some of the other brands.
Mm-hmm. So what is the interface between the printer and it's all going to be like Ethernet or wireless then, right?
It's basically all the functions are handled by Windows 11 now. And the operating system instead of the manufacturer drivers, the operating system comes with It's actually driverless. Linux has been using driverless printing for years. And
Does it just convert it all to PostScript and dump it into the printer, or does it do it something else different?
I don't know that it has to be PostScript, but yeah, it's basically using whatever driverless method the operating system has baked into it. And Windows is headed that direction. Because
I've seen, that's the way that I remember Solaris doing some of its work. It would generate PostScript and then send the PostScript to the spooler to the device.
Yeah, except here you skip the spooler.
Skip the spooler.
And hence you get driverless printing.
Or are they just going to accept certain image files and be able to print them automatically?
I think that is another option, but anyway, there's an alliance of manufacturers, and it seems to include just about everybody except Epson. And my printer is uniquely afflicted with being one of the Epson models that won't work with this. Every model, phone. Every model between every model below it, every model above it works, but this range of models doesn't.
Just lucky, you guess, huh?
Well, I got this printer for free because my nephew, he's of the younger generation, and he didn't print enough to make it worth his while to buy cartridges because everything kept drying up.
I got this Hewlett-Packard 4000 that basically was being thrown out at work at Motorola because it had become jammed and it was not under service contract. And it wasn't that old of a printer either, but I went and spent several lunch periods taking this thing apart down to the drum and removing the paper that had wrapped around it that resembled Tyvek after I removed it, realizing it was not part of the print setup. It had just it felt just like Tyvek. Yeah. Anyhow, took it, put it back together, got it working. And one of the interesting things that I have found for Android is a program called Printer Share. And Printer Share Premium will allow you to set up your phone and print just about any file that you have acquired, okay, and send it to the printer over the local net. And like I said, this HP 4000 still has a 10 base T Ethernet interface on it, but it is cooked up to my local network, so my phone can reach it, and when I need to print a document or something, I can attempt, let's see if this will print it right here. And then I don't have to transfer it to a Windows machine first and then print it that way.
That gives me an idea. It may be that the cloud print that can operate through your Chrome browser would also still work on my printer. I know I can do cloud print.
Yeah, if you can cloud print, then you still have a way around it. So
yeah,
just have to print everything through Google.
Yeah, which basically I do whenever I use my old Chromebook, even though it runs Linux.
Yeah, but then Google knows exactly what you're printing, and they get a copy of it all.
I haven't printed anything terribly personal that way.
And by extension, the government now knows too.
Yeah. Well, they know if you use Windows, they know everything anyway.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm waiting for them to say, Ed, you've been running without a license too long.
Well, at least my Windows are all licensed. Okay, but there are other ways, and direct from the smartphone is one way.
Yeah, so that's an option in case you have a machine that has become obsolete and you no longer have an interface, but they do manufacture these things that will basically print to almost any local printer, and they don't have drivers to these things. They just find the device and they said, okay, I'll just use the whatever basic format I have that I can communicate with it, and it seems to be able to print everything just fine.
Yeah, they used to have things called hardware print servers.
I probably still have some somewheres. The old ones that have a Centronics printer connector on it and a 10 base T on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. That was called Jet Direct, right?
Yeah, but in any event, there are ways of doing wireless printing with this printer that is actually an Epson product. So then Epson knows what you printed.
Yeah. I
Instead of
prefer not
WEMO.
to use wireless. I like to hook my printers up with an Ethernet cable anyway, just so there's no contest as to whether it's trying to print something and use the airwaves or not, or when there's a
Yeah.
microwave running and being interfered with. Yeah.
But I think if you went wired in Windows 11, you would be stuck with whatever Microsoft will support.
Oh, maybe so. This thing seems to love the Brother printer I have, so
Oh,
I had
Brother
no
is
problem.
Brother is part of the Alliance, and most of their stuff will work.
Except for the scanning capability. And for some reason, it will not connect the scanner on Windows 11. And I'm not sure if it's their software and they never upgraded the scanner software and there's some issue with it. But if I need to scan, then I got to use another tool like NAPS2. If I use NAPS2, not another PostScript scanner, that is able to access the scanner driver no problem and snap a copy of the page and do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
I've had to use that with some of the Canon devices at church. I've set up different profiles. Finally, I figured out the right sequence. This scanner does the glass, this scanner does the feeder single-sided, this one does the scanner double-sided. Because when it scans on those, it's got a double-sided scanner, so it scans both sides of the paper at the same time, if it's been told to do so.
Yeah. If I were going to do something like that where the scanner was not supported by Windows, I'd look into Linux, see if I could do it that way.
Yeah, that's a possibility too. But that scanner and that printer are probably going to be retired soon because it's not been under contract for, almost 2 years now. And it's starting to show the times that it has not been properly maintained. And it's actually more expensive to take an old printer, have them come out, refurbish it, and put it under contract than it is to just buy a new printer or rent a new printer with option to buy at the end for $1.
Absolutely.
So you can service and support your older printer at $550 a month, or you can buy a brand new one that's about the same speed and it's missing the book staple option for $350 a month. You ever had the book staple option?
I never needed it.
Staples in the middle of the book of the page, so you can do the pamphlet. Yes.
Yeah, you can.
We never used it either. It's on here, but we never used it. Like, why did you buy it?
Yeah, it has that little space in the middle. Yeah, and it might even have a little dotted line down the middle.
No, yeah, unless it printed the dotted line, it ain't happening. Any other questions? Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, then I will go ahead and wrap this up a little earlier then. Oh, Sid rose his hand.
Yeah, I'll get in the last one. Has anybody played with any of the Windows modifiers to let you run 11 on machines that don't actually support 11? Are there any recommendations?
I think the only person that's done that is Tim.
Yeah. I've been doing the machine I'm on right now as the primary is running Windows 11 unsupported. It has been since Microsoft took my Windows 10 Insider and switched it without even telling me that to 11, and it's been on 11 now through 23H2. You can't. This particular machine doesn't have a CPU that can go to 24H2, so this machine will be retired. But
If
it
it doesn't
works.
want to
And
retire.
now the one thing when you're doing unsupported is you can't call Microsoft with a problem. They'll laugh and hang up. The other thing is that you're on your own to get the answers of how to get an upgrade from one version to another version to another version. You will not get all the features that a fully supported Windows 11 system will have. But for the most part, you have most of 11 that really counts that anybody would generally want that came from a Windows 10 environment. So, I mean, right now there's a few things in like Windows File Explorer that aren't on my system. And also there were some other odds and ends here and there. You're not going to see them. But as far as like things like Copilot, that's there because they ported it back all the way to 10. So it does exist. It does work. I'm happy with it as is. But I mean, I have other Windows Real 11 supported systems here. And with those particular devices, I have all the features except for I don't have one that has the NPU in it for what's called Copilot Plus operation, where it's doing local type of intelligence lookup of what you have been doing on your system for a long period of time. Otherwise, I mean, I think as far as the computers that have an NPU, those are mostly for people who are going to really hammer the heck out of AI. If you're not going to hammer a lot out of AI, you're just going to use it casually, you're not going to miss having no NPU.
But what do you think about these machines that they're selling as AI capable that are nothing more than a Celeron processor and 64 gig of memory?
No, they have an NPU in them.
I don't know what MPU they might
No.
or NPU they might have in it. I don't know if there's much of one. That chip is.
It's Nancy Paul Union. And what it is the NPU is an intelligence AI processing unit, a coprocessor, as it were. And those only come in like Intel Ultra chips and certain AMD Ryzen chips have a similar version.
And also, there are ARM systems that have NPU and the other necessary bits and pieces all in a system on a chip.
Right.
And ARM is quite flexible in terms of what kinds of cores it can have as well. They have both performance cores and efficiency cores. And it's possible to switch off some of the, some or all of the efficiency cores if you need the performance.
But the things that were being advertised, I've been looking for Windows 11 capable laptops. And every once in a while, Amazon will put some things out there for me to look at. Says, oh, but this one's capable of AI. If it's running an N100 or an N150, there's no NPU that comes with it.
No.
So they're pushing it, and it's got 64 gig of memory and a 2 terabyte M2 drive. Like, well,
but
what are you going to do with
understand,
that?
the Intel chips and the Ryzen chips and most of the ARM chips don't have an NPU.
Right.
Period.
Well, I don't think they had an NPU in this thing that was being advertised as such. Because I was looking for,
Well, usually,
like I said, a new laptop
usually,
with maybe,
in any machine that has an NPU, if it doesn't say Intel Ultra or it will say Copilot Plus. That it's
yes.
Copilot Plus means it's got the NPU inside. But you got to watch it.
Okay.
There were a lot of packaging of units that gave you the impression that it has the NPU and it doesn't.
Well, that's what I think these were because the price was down. It wasn't an expensive price. So you couldn't have added much into this. And either they've been refurbed or they've been advertised incorrectly. The process, I've been looking for a number of machines, and typically I've been searching for maybe like a Ryzen 7, 7000, 8000 series with maybe 1 terabyte drive and maybe at least 32 gig of memory for a laptop with a 15-inch screen minimum and full HD. And I found some that are close, but almost every single one of them is an older machine that's been refurbed by a separate company.
Yeah.
And there's only a 30-day warranty.
But also, besides that, even used AMD laptops, you will pay a premium over the basically the same kind of a system with an Intel chip.
Yeah. Well, the reason I like it is because my experience with some of the Ryzen chips, like this thing that I'm running on now, it's almost room temperature in terms of the airflow that's coming through this, running this Zoom session and everything else that I did. I mean, if it sits there and it's doing an update and it's downloading and installing, then it will come up in temperature a little bit. It's not like my old i7. When I was putting these updates in from Windows, it was running at 89 degrees Celsius on the chip.
Right.
And I thought, okay, you're starting to cook. And this is with forced air cooling coming in the bottom as well. And that's why I would prefer to find a chipset like something like the Ryzen chipsets, which use less power, less heat, have an adequate amount of processing capability, usually CPU spec marks in the 20 to 30,000 for all the cores going, and an individual processor core somewhere 3,500 to 5,000. Usually reasonable numbers. And like the Ryzen 7, 8 cores, 16 hyperthreads, that's more than enough. That's what this one has. But it's not this.